Tommy Robinson. The mere mention of his name evokes strong reactions. To some, he is a fearless voice, unafraid to speak uncomfortable truths. Others see him very differently. To them, he is a dangerous demagogue, a peddler of hate and intolerance. Tommy Robinson is a lightning rod for controversy. Is the crusading hero his supporters believe him to be, or is he the villain his detractors portray him as? Born Stephen Yaxley Lennon in 1982, Tommy Robinson's life has been anything but ordinary. From his working class upbringing in Luton to his rise as the leader of the English Defence League, Robinson has consistently courted controversy. His confrontational style and incendiary rhetoric have made him a hero to some and a pariah to others. Robinson's supporters view him as a man of the people, someone who is not afraid to speak truth to power. His detractors, however, see him as a dangerous provocateur, someone who is deliberately stoking the flames of racial and religious hatred. One thing is for sure, Tommy Robinson is a complex and contradictory figure. Stephen Yaxley Lennon, the man who would become known as Tommy Robinson, was born in 1982 into a working class family in Luton, a town grappling with economic hardship and social tensions. Luton's industrial decline had left many feeling disillusioned and disenfranchised, creating fertile ground for resentment and frustration. Young Stephen's childhood was marked by the anxieties of the time, a period of uncertainty and social change that would leave an indelible mark on his worldview. Growing up on a council estate, Stephen witnessed firsthand the struggles of working class families like his own. He saw the impact of unemployment, poverty, and social unrest, experiences that would later, fuel his anger and his sense of alienation from mainstream society. It was here, amidst the social and economic turmoil of 1980s Britain, that the seeds of Tommy Robinson's future activism were sown. As Stephen transitioned into adolescence, his sense of disillusionment with mainstream society only deepened. The collapse of traditional industries in Luton had left a void, and into that void stepped far-right groups offering simplistic solutions to complex problems. They preyed on the anxieties of the time, blaming immigrants, minorities, and the liberal elite for the town's woes. For a young man searching for answers, for a sense of identity and purpose, their message held a dangerous appeal. At the age of 15, Stephen joined the British National Party, a far-right political party notorious for its racist and anti-immigrant views. The BNP offered him a sense of camaraderie and belonging that he had been craving. Here, he felt heard, understood and validated. He embraced their ideology with a fervour that alarmed his family and friends, but he had found his tribe, a group of like-minded individuals who shared his anger and frustration. Section 3, the making of an activist. Early clashes and convictions. Stephen's departure from the BNP marked a turning point in his life. He craved a more direct, more confrontational approach. He wanted to take the fight directly to those he saw as the enemies of his people and his country. This desire for action led him to establish the English Defence League, propelling him onto the national stage. In 2009, at 26, he adopted the pseudonym Tommy Robinson, a name borrowed from notorious Luton football hooligan. The adoption of this alias was symbolic. He was no longer the angry young man from the council estate. He was Tommy Robinson, the self-proclaimed voice of the people. Under Robinson's leadership, the EDL quickly gained notoriety for its street protests and its clashes with Muslim communities and anti-fascist groups. Robinson revelled in the role of provocateur, using inflammatory language and aggressive tactics to draw attention to his cause. He became a master of media manipulation, understanding the power of images and sound bites in shaping public perception. They saw in Robinson a leader who was not afraid to speak his mind, a man who was willing to fight for what he believed in, regardless of the consequences. Tommy Robinson had found his voice, but in doing so, he had set in motion a chain of events that would have far-reaching consequences for himself and for British society. Section 1. The rise of the EDL marching to a different drum. The English Defence League, under Robinson's charismatic yet divisive leadership, quickly gained traction. Frustrated with what they perceived as the government's inaction against the rising tide of Islamic extremism, a growing number of primarily young working-class men flocked to the EDL's banner. These were not seasoned political activists, but ordinary people who felt unheard and ignored, their anxieties skillfully exploited by Robinson's rhetoric. Robinson, with his streetwise demeanour and no-holds-barred approach, was a far cry from the polished politicians they had grown to distrust. He spoke their language, understood their fears, and offered a sense of belonging and purpose in an increasingly uncertain world. The EDL, for all its flaws and controversies, provided an outlet for their frustrations, a platform to vent their anger at a system they felt had failed them. Section 2. Luton on the brink. Islamists at the gates. The town of Luton, Robinson's hometown, became a focal point for the EDL's activities. It was here in 2009 that a seemingly minor incident would catapult Robinson and the EDL into the national spotlight. A group of Islamic extremists protesting against British troops returning from Afghanistan had staged a demonstration that turned ugly. The images, broadcast on national news, sparked outrage and disgust across the country. For many in Luton already grappling with social and economic anxieties, the incident confirmed their worst fears about the rise of radical Islam. Robinson, seizing the moment, portrayed the protest as a direct attack on British values. He called for a show of strength, and the people of Luton responded in droves. The EDL's first major rally in Luton was the largest the town had ever seen. Thousands of people, many of whom had never attended a political demonstration before, descended on the town centre. Robinson delivered a fiery speech, railing against the perceived threat of Islamization. The rally, while largely peaceful, marked a turning point in the EDL's trajectory. Luton became synonymous with the growing tensions between white working-class communities and Muslim minorities. The EDL's presence brought unwanted attention, further polarizing the town. Robinson revelled in the notoriety, portraying himself as the defender of a besieged majority. Section 3. A hero emerges from working class to working class hero. In the wake of the Luton rally, Robinson's profile skyrocketed. He became a regular fixture on television news programs and in the pages of right-wing newspapers. His confrontational style and incendiary rhetoric guaranteed headlines. Love him or loathe him, Tommy Robinson had become a force to be reckoned with. His appeal extended far beyond far-right politics. He tapped into resentment among working-class communities. He spoke their language, shared their concerns, and blamed immigrants and Muslims. Robinson became a cult hero to his followers. He was one of them challenging the status quo. His message resonated with those alienated from mainstream society. His critics saw him as a dangerous demagogue. They pointed to his criminal past and far-right associations. They accused him of exploiting working-class concerns for personal gain. Tommy Robinson had become a deeply polarizing figure. Section 1. The EDL Years, a Campaign of Confrontation. The years following the Luton rally were a whirlwind of activity for Robinson and the EDL. Emboldened by their newfound notoriety, they embarked on a nationwide campaign of marches and demonstrations. These rallies, often held under the banner of protesting against Islamic extremism, were characterized by a volatile mix of aggression and sporadic violence. Robinson, with his trademark shaved head and bullhorn in hand, became the face of this new wave of anti-Muslim sentiment. He relished the confrontations and the media attention. His speeches painted a picture of a Britain on the brink of collapse. As the EDL's notoriety grew, so too did the opposition. Anti-fascist groups mobilized to counter their demonstrations, leading to numerous clashes with the police caught in the middle. Section 2, Beyond the EDL, a broader platform, a familiar message. By 2013, the EDL was a shadow of its former self. Internal divisions, financial problems, and a series of high-profile arrests had taken their toll. Robinson, facing mounting legal problems, announced his departure, citing concerns about its increasingly extremist elements. However, his commitment to his core message, the perceived threat of Islamization and the need to protect British values, remained undiminished. He reinvented himself as an independent activist, utilizing social media platforms to spread his message to a wider audience. His message, however, remained largely unchanged. In 2018, Robinson's confrontational tactics finally caught up with him. He was arrested outside a courthouse in Leeds, where he was filming himself confronting defendants in an ongoing grooming gang trial in violation of court reporting restrictions. Robinson's supporters rallied to his defense, portraying him as a victim of a politically motivated prosecution. Robinson was found guilty of contempt of court and sentenced to 13 months in prison. His imprisonment further fueled the narrative of martyrdom, transforming him into a cause célèbre for the far right. Robinson's imprisonment, far from diminishing his influence, had inadvertently made him more dangerous than ever. Tommy Robinson's activism has consistently landed him in trouble with the law. His confrontational approach has resulted in numerous arrests and convictions over the years. His supporters view these legal entanglements as badges of honor, proof of his willingness to fight for what he believes in. His detractors see them as evidence of a disregard for the rule of law. From his early days with the BNP to his leadership of the EDL, Robinson has been a magnet for controversy. He has been arrested for offences ranging from assault to mortgage fraud. His criminal record is a testament to his turbulent life and willingness to operate outside acceptable behaviour. One of the most common charges leveled against Robinson is inciting racial or religious hatred. His rhetoric has repeatedly landed him in hot water. His supporters argue that he is simply exercising his right to free speech. His critics counter that his words incite violence and hatred against minority communities. Robinson's legal battles have come at a significant personal cost. He has spent time in prison, faced travel bans, and financial ruin. Yet, he remains undeterred, portraying himself as a victim of a politically motivated witch hunt. His legal troubles have only served to amplify his message and solidify his status as a cause célèbre for the far right. In May 2018, Tommy Robinson crossed a line with significant repercussions for himself and the debate on freedom of speech. While filming outside Leeds Crown Court during a trial involving men accused of grooming young girls, Robinson was arrested for contempt of court. His live-streamed actions sparked controversy, dividing public opinion. Supporters argued he was reporting on a public interest matter. They accused authorities of silencing a dissenting voice. Legal experts noted Robinson violated court reporting restrictions. The judge found Robinson guilty of contempt and sentenced him to 13 months in prison. The sentence inflamed his supporters, who saw it as an assault on free speech. The case made Robinson a martyr for the far right and a symbol of perceived civil liberties erosion. Section 3, Allegations of Racism, Hate Speech or Free Speech. Throughout his career, Tommy Robinson has faced accusations of racism and Islamophobia. His rhetoric, often targeting Muslims, has been condemned by anti-racism groups and politicians. Robinson denies these allegations, claiming he is concerned about radical Islam and British values. His supporters argue he speaks uncomfortable truths others avoid. They cite his criticisms of Islamic extremism and defense of British culture as patriotism. Critics argue his rhetoric goes beyond legitimate criticism, pointing to inflammatory language and far-right associations. The debate on whether his pronouncements are hate speech or free speech is complex and ongoing. A nation divided, the Tommy Robinson phenomenon. Tommy Robinson is a Rorschach test for the British soul. His very existence exposes the deep fissures running through society, the fault lines of class, culture, and identity that have come to define the political landscape. To his supporters, he is a folk hero, a courageous voice speaking truth to power, a defender of British values against the perceived threats of Islamization and political correctness. To his detractors, he is a dangerous demagogue, a peddler of hate and intolerance, a far-right extremist who thrives on division and fear. There is no middle ground when it comes to Tommy Robinson. He evokes strong emotions, both positive and negative, and his ability to polarize opinion is undeniable. His supporters, often drawn from working class communities, view him as a champion of the forgotten man, someone who understands their anxieties about immigration, multiculturalism, and the perceived erosion of traditional values. A toxic legacy, Robinson's enduring impact. Regardless of one's opinion of Tommy Robinson, his impact on British society is undeniable. He has shifted the Overton window, normalizing anti-Muslim sentiment and making it more acceptable to express bigoted views under the guise of free speech. He has given a voice to the voiceless but it is a voice often characterized by anger, resentment, and intolerance. Robinson's legacy is a toxic mix of genuine grievances and dangerous solutions. He has successfully tapped into the anxieties of a segment of British society that feels left behind and ignored, but he has offered them scapegoats instead of solutions, fear instead of hope. His rhetoric, often laced with Islamophobic tropes and anti-immigrant sentiment, has poisoned public discourse and contributed to a climate of fear and suspicion. His influence can be seen in the rise of far-right groups and the increasing mainstreaming of their views. He has provided a blueprint for a new generation of activists who emulate his confrontational style and exploit social media to spread their message of hate and division. Robinson's impact extends beyond the UK's borders. He has become a cause célèbre for the international far right, his message amplified by online platforms and embraced by white nationalists and anti-Muslim extremists around the world. His imprisonment for contempt of court, while justified on legal grounds, further fueled the narrative of martyrdom, portraying him as a victim of a liberal establishment intent on silencing dissent. Tommy Robinson's story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked populism and the seductive appeal of simple solutions to complex problems. His enduring legacy is a society more divided, more distrustful, and more susceptible to the siren song of extremism. It is a legacy that will continue to haunt British society for years to come. A mirror to ourselves. Tommy Robinson's story is not just about one man, it's a reflection of our times, a stark reminder of the divisions that plague Western societies. His rise to prominence, fueled by anger and resentment, exposes the anxieties of a generation grappling with rapid social and economic change. The anger that propelled Robinson to the forefront of British politics didn't emerge from a vacuum. It's rooted in a complex web of social and economic factors, from the decline of traditional industries and the erosion of working class communities to the perceived failures of multiculturalism and the rise of identity politics. Robinson's supporters, often dismissed as ignorant bigots, are not simply monsters to be demonized. Many are driven by genuine fears and frustrations, a sense that their way of life is under threat, their voices drowned out by a liberal elite they believe no longer represents them. Beyond the headlines. The Tommy Robinson saga is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked populism. Freedom of speech, while a cornerstone of democratic societies, is not an absolute right. It comes with responsibilities, and those who abuse this right must be held accountable. Robinson's story is also a reminder of the resilience of democratic institutions and the importance of a free press in holding power to account. Beyond the headlines lies a shared humanity that connects us all.